Let us also take this opportunity to guest our special panel on this broadcast India at ASEAN Summit. Ambassador Amrit Lagoon, former senior diplomat, joining us live from New Delhi. We are joined by Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj, School of International Studies from JNU in our Delhi studio. And we continue to have a very special guest from Japan, Tokyo in Japan, Dr. Satoru Nagao, who continues to be with us. And thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for being with us. I'm going to start this part of the broadcast with Ambassador. How do you, first of all, this culturally rich welcome put forth not only by the Indian diaspora, sir, but we've seen the Laos nationals being part of it, and India's cultural and spiritual heritage being on display, whether you talk about the rendition of the mantras from Gayatri Mantra to Ganesh Stuti to Bihu dance performance. What do you think has been the underlying message here? Because these few hours, the opening of the cemetery is also very important in terms of the optics and messaging.
Yeah, I mean, Laos and the whole of Southeast Asia, India's relations has been underpinned very strongly. I mean, even historically. The Bihu akin dance, because our so-called rulers of the state of Assam, Ahoms, they came from that region, Thailand, Laos region, and so the cultural impact is very high, and we have after we became independent, India and the Indochina, which was Laos was part of that, became independent, and both were part of the colonial masters. Laos being part of the French side and India being from the British side. So after the independence, so the cultural roots have given us a good foundation on which to build relationship. And that is why India later on stressed on this look east policy after both sides gained confidence. And we must also remember that in this year only 2024, we had this 7th India International Ramayana Festival, where the Royal Ballet of Laos had very enthusiastically participated. And we have extended another cultural exchange program. So with Laos and other countries of that region, the rich cultural heritage is being stressed or is being promoted, and it will give a very good foundation. And we should also know that Laos, being part of the Indian Buddhist links, which we have been trying to propagate, where we have now upgraded the Nalanda University, and Buddhist circuit has been strengthened. And we see that countries of that region, we call Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, they have been given land to build their temples. So these physical aspects in underpinning our cultural exchanges does offer a very good foundation for building relationship, and then extending in other areas. So once that emotional connect happens, that is likely to play a very good role in building relationship in other domains, whether it is political, economy, etc. Yes.
Okay. Let me bring in Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj of the SI, School of International Studies of the Jawaharlal Nehru University, who's in our studio as well. I'll come to you, Dr. Nagao, in just a bit. Thank you for joining us again for this stretch of our programming. But Dr. Bharadwaj, what do you make of how all these things that bind this entire region together, not just ASEAN, but Southeast Asia with India, these cultural aspects, the ancient links, to sort of re-emphasize them and re-establish them, how critical is it to ensuring that the kind of ties that we aspire to, not just India, but all of us, all these countries aspire to become reality, contemporizing the past with the present and the future?
Thank you. if we understand the present wave of connections or relations with Southeast Asian countries, there are 7 waves that had been connecting to India with Southeast Asian countries. It started till 10th century, you can say the Hinduism has been a strong bonding between these two regions, like you go to Indonesia, Malaysia, Laos, everywhere you will find Thailand. Then the second waves, you can say Buddhism, till 7th century Buddhism has also been strongly spreaded through China, you can say. And then third wave is the Islam, Indo-Islamic culture, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited to Brunei, and there he visited to mosque.
Yes.
So that connection is very strong. Then after independence, you can say we try to connect with all these Southeast Asian countries through Asian Relations Conference. Then we try to have an Asian Brotherhood through NAM. All these are the 4. But what most important thing is that because the Cold War period has become the victim of the Cold War politics. So what we have that in 1990, when Narasimha Rao was Prime Minister, he talked about the Look East policy. This Look East policy, it had been given a foundation, but what Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he came and he became the Prime Minister in 2014, we had basically transformed or acted the policy as Act East policy, and where I would say that Laos is again, I would say, very important country, being a vehicle for the development. In fact, that these Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Myanmar, these 4 countries were the prime target for India to connect all 4 C's. What are these all 4 C's? It comes to the cultural connectivity, that to revive, to strengthen the cultural connect what it has been lost in due to the number of political and strategic regions. The second connect is the commercial connect, that we had started connecting trade, commerce, investment, and we have become member of the India-ASEAN summit, East Asia summit, and the trade today has reached around $130 billion, you can say, and the way we are connecting, we are trying to meet the digital gaps. We are trying to, let me come to 2 more points. So the third connectivity comes the physical connectivity, and this physical connectivity started from tri-nations road connectivity, India, Myanmar, and then Thailand. And this is going beyond that. We are connecting Cambodia, Laos till Vietnam. So this would be a very strong connections, having people to people cooperations, and I think these are the visions. And the fourth, very important, it is also part of this summit as well, and when Prime Minister visited Singapore, that is the capacity build up, and this is the now we are in the age of capacity building, where service sector, knowledge sharing, technology, traditions, digitalization, semiconductor, all these sectors, AI, education, health sector, these are making a bridge between India.
I'd like to add another C to it. Climate.
Yeah, of course, climate justice, and India is pioneer of that. Indian Prime Minister, he talks about International Solar Alliance. India has talked that we will meet the Paris Agreement. India had been advocating about the climate justice, where we talk about that at least $1 trillion should be collected to meet the climate change challenges.
Okay.
So these are
Professor Bharadwaj, you would also agree that alignment of India with ASEAN is also linked with various geostrategic concerns, and we cannot really look away the timings of the summit. Since India is one of the largest trade partners of ASEAN, do you think in this summit India can navigate through some difficult conversations? India has the say and the sway both, because you mentioned about trade and other aspects, but let's go one by one what all India is going to bring to the table.
Very important question that you have raised about, because we are in very critical age. That the world is basically aligning and realigning, and where the Indo-Pacific strategy is emerging, and India is very critical, very important partner. Keeping India's historical linkages in the context of trade, investment, all that, there had been a Chinese shadow on all the Southeast Asian countries. All the Southeast Asian countries now they are looking at India, that India can give, can balance, can provide a good passage or a developmental deal while they are looking forward. So India is focusing two. One is under Indo-Pacific strategy, the Quad, and the Quad, we had a summit while Prime Minister visited to US. That was one thing. And you know, Quad, the area of implementation laboratory is this region, in this Southeast Asia region. That is the cultural construct, but it is now becoming moreover strategic. So one is very important aspects that India is looking. The second very important in Quad, let me give very important point.
Wait. Yes.
Right. Let me just bounce this, since you mentioned the Quad, to Dr. Satoru Nagao as well, because he joins us from Tokyo. He's from the Hudson Institute. Thank you again, Dr. Nagao. Now, since India and Japan are two of the four constituents of Quad, just tell us how's that perception of India as part of the Quad also influencing how ASEAN is looking at India and wants to take relations forward with India, particularly in the defense in the maritime domain?
Thank you very much for asking. Yeah, in this case, we should remember how wide Indo-Pacific and which area is the center of the Indo-Pacific. Because Quad is a group of the great powers in the Indo-Pacific except China. So that's why Quad and Indo-Pacific is connected. So Indo-Pacific, why this concept is important? Because just three reasons. Firstly, this is emerging region. Economically, they are developing, and something big has happened in the Indo-Pacific. The impact will spread to the world. So that's why now this region is important. But in this case, concern is expanding China's influence in this region. This region could be China-dominated region. So that's why indeed the most important country of the Indo-Pacific and the Quad is India. Because if we talk about the issue of the Asia-Pacific, which do not include the Indian Ocean region, we do not need a new concept. Indo-Pacific is new because of India. And the Quad is new because of India. Because the US, Australia, and Japan, if these three countries cooperate each other, we do not need a new concept. India is newcomer, that is the most important. But how to deal with Indo-Pacific is viewed from the map. We can easily identify Southeast Asia is center. So Southeast Asia, ASEAN centrality, Southeast Asia is important. Every time we repeat it. Why? Because of course this region is center geographically, but at the same time geopolitically,
right,
this is important too.
Right, Dr. Nagao. But the fact remains that ASEAN still seems to be divided over how to address these security challenges, which includes China's claims in the South China Sea. We're going to talk about that and take that question to Ambassador Amrit. But before that, let's also continue to talk about how the day has spanned there. On day one, upon Prime Minister's arrival there, he was accorded a resounding welcome by the Indian diaspora and the nationals from Laos as well. Besides other engagements, the Archaeological Survey of India, we must tell our viewers, has been undertaking exceptional work for restoration and conservation of Vat Phou Temple, which happens to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Laos. And this is also a symbol of the close civilizational ties and heritage. Since we are talking about it in our discussion as well, let's now take a look at this unique project under Indian assistance, which is a special element of their cultural cooperation.
And the sacred connection. India's historic and cultural ties with Southeast Asia run deep, forming a rich tapestry of shared heritage. Under Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's visionary leadership, the transition from the Look East policy to the Act East policy has significantly bolstered India's engagement with Southeast Asian nations. This dynamic shift has not only enhanced diplomatic and economic cooperation, but also fostered collaborative efforts in preserving and restoring ancient temples across the region. India shares a deep and enduring relationship with the Lao People's Democratic Republic. exemplified by an ancient Lord Shiva temple structure dating back to the 11th century. Nestled in the heart of Laos, on a sacred mountain stands Vat Phou, a reflection of India's civilizational influence. Though built in distant land, it remains profoundly connected to the spiritual and cultural essence of the Indian subcontinent. For centuries, Indian traders and pilgrims ventured across land and sea, carrying with them far more than spices and textiles. They brought tales of gods, sacred art, and spiritual traditions that would leave a lasting imprint on the future of Southeast Asia. Vat Phou remains a testament to the profound spiritual bond between India and Southeast Asia. Through its art, religion, and devotion, the echoes of a shared civilization still resonate today. As time progressed, India's influence endured. Vat Phou, like many temples throughout Southeast Asia, evolved with the spread of Theravada Buddhism. Yet its foundation in Indian philosophy remained deeply embedded in the rituals practiced by the Lao people. To this day, Vat Phou continues to embody a living spirit. An annual festival, steeped in ancient traditions, celebrates not only the settlement of the Lao people, but also the timeless connection with India that has lasted for over 1,000 years. In 2007, Government of India and Lao People's Democratic Republic jointly launched an initiative to preserve this shared cultural heritage for its posterity. The Archaeological Survey of India has been actively involved in the conservation of this UNESCO World Heritage Site for the last 15 years as per the conservation principles and in close coordination with UNESCO's expert advisory group and active participation of local artisans and craftsmen. This rich history of cultural exchange laid the foundation for the preservation efforts that continue today. Vat Phou stands as a vibrant symbol of the enduring spiritual relationship between India and Southeast Asia. The whispers of a shared civilization continue to reverberate across time.
Let's quickly get in Ambassador Amrit Lagoon also into this discussion, particularly on that points before we went to that cultural and historical civilization linkages part. We were talking about the fact that the ASEAN remains divided over, certain security challenges, how to address those challenges in difficult conversations, because you cannot really ignore the elephant in the room. But in this edition of the India-ASEAN Summit, considering a lot of water, you would agree, has passed under the bridge from Jakarta Summit, India's role is pivotal as a stable member, which brings a lot to the table.
Yes, as Professor from Japan was mentioning, India's role in that region becomes very pivotal because, as you said, elephant in the room. The other big power, Professor also mentioned, China as a footprint is also very, very strong, especially in the economic side, and they have also been trying to promote a lot of their cultural exchanges, because this whole region, Southeast Asia, in particular, and ASEAN as a whole, they lie between two civilizational giants of China and India. And historically, there used to be exchanges, so it is but natural that this pull and push will be there. But there have been, for example, concerns, definitely as a result of the modern developments happens. The best example which one can see is in the south, we call earlier used to call China Sea, in the context of Spratly's Island of Philippines. And since I have served in Philippines, I very distinctly remember in the early 2000s or late 2000s, that the Filipino fishermen used to go very freely to these islands. And later on, when this question of who controls the area, and there was this after a lot of surveys, it was found that these region can be rich in hydrocarbons. Then one particular China has tried to control it, that region, and at the current scenario, the Filipino fishermen cannot go there very freely as they used to go, and in fact, many fishermen unfortunately have been blocked by the navies of the rival country. And even after UNCLOS, ruled in favor of Philippines, the situation has not improved. So there is definitely this security concern, and it spills over to other countries, even Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam have been raising concerns about this. They feel pressured by this hegemonistic act by a particular country. And then where Laos is there, we have this giant Mekong River, which
Yes.
divides, in fact, Laos and Thailand. And the China has in the Yunnan province is now damming that river. So the flow down is, which are the lower riparian countries. The flow has become less now. And, as a result, a country like which is the lowest riparian, like Vietnam, they are facing a threat from the sea that because the flow of this Mekong has been disrupted by these projects. Also, ASEAN, between Laos and China side, they have built a big railway line. So the concerns are there, both from the
Yes,
security
but
point of view
Professor, if I could ask Professor Bhardwaj, have the ASEAN nations really put forth these concerns clearly? Are they in a position to do that? Have they been doing it? Because a lot of them have trade links which are very strong with China. Some of them have been dependent for development funding or loans on China as well. And in that context, what sort of role has India been playing, and has the potential to play even further, where a rebalancing is concerned, where India has vital concerns itself, where freedom of navigation is concerned, in places like the South China Sea, where we had a joint naval exercise also for the first time just a short while back?
No, where I left, I said that you correctly pointed out that wherever, either you go to Vietnam, go to Indonesia, you go to Malaysia, all these Philippines, Singapore, everywhere you will find the Chinese shadow is very strong, very deeply rooted in their business. In particularly, that ambassador also mentioned about the energy sector. The Chinese companies are exploring that natural gas, hydrocarbon in Indonesia, in Malaysia, Brunei, all these countries. So now, but the problem is that this complex interdependencies on economic issues, particularly Chinese dependencies are very high, or the Southeast Asian countries has on that. They are looking, they want to come out with this shadow. They want to come out, and they are looking at an alternative. And I think that they also understand that India is also equally emerging middle class market. So they are looking that India can become a destination for their hydrocarbon energy resources, not only hydrocarbon but renewable energy resources, as well as correctly Prime Minister has signed an agreement with Singapore, and they are also looking beyond Southeast Asia, where Australia, Indonesia and Singapore, they are already looking at Indo-Pacific transmission corridor line for the electricity supply that could be extended up to India. So my point is here that this Quad and Indo-Pacific strategy, what is most important aspects what India is emphasizing is that we will not just look the security aspects, we will also look non-traditional security aspects where energy, climate change, disaster management, maritime security, all these areas where, and that digital digital cooperation, AI and intelligence service sharing, and service sector. So India is, and these are part of this capacity build up project that India does. And you will think that, well, India has come out in ASEAN India summit, the 4 very important funds had been generated. A part of that Indo-Pacific Ocean initiative, there are also India-ASEAN fund, that $100 billion they have, Modi has initiated that $100 billion fund. Then there is also India-ASEAN Green Fund, there is also India-ASEAN Science Technology Fund, and there are also India-ASEAN that climate change and all that. These issues are very critical, and now Prime Minister, there are agenda what disaster management, because you know these areas, either Indonesia or even in South Asia, Bangladesh and all these countries are cyclone prone regions, that they are always cyclone and all that. So the cooperation in disaster management is also very critical aspects of looking. So my point is there that the transformation is towards the addressing non-traditional security issues. What
so
global...
basically, the bottom line here being that India is crystal clear as far as its robust outreach towards ASEAN is concerned. And before I go to the next story, just a quick one from you on this, that this clarity, this shift from look east to act east is just not a template narrative in books, but actually, how do you see this whole shift in last 1 decade, and particularly the points that you covered? I mean, this is exactly the rationale behind the 12-point agenda that Prime Minister proposed in the Jakarta summit. And we are walking the talk. At least India is walking the talk.
No.
Professor.
See, Hath Kangan ko aasiga. You can see it that last week, Prime Minister was in Singapore and Brunei. He is now in Laos, and now next visit
Clearly,
is
there is an uptick in engagement.
Absolutely, that apex level, that all that, even the head of the governments, they are visiting each other. The ministerial level talks
Malaysia
and discussions,
Vietnam,
high level delegations are visiting there, and we are prioritizing because PM is going to Thailand now. So next visit is there. So the line of exchange of visits and high agendas in that are reflecting that we are just not looking east, we are acting. Not only acting, we are connecting with the east, and that is connecting Asia or connecting east is very, very critical aspects, because we were connected, but the link has been lost due to the colonial construct, due to the colonial security construct, due to the Cold War politics, but it has been looked by Narasimha Rao and now acted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So I'm sure that
and energizing the ties.
You can see the trade also, that we have around $130 billion trade with.
So I'll just interrupt you here because there's so much we have to talk, and we will go to other guests as well. But we also have to tell our viewers or apprise our viewers that how Prime Minister Modi shared these very special moments of his arrival. Yes, the arrival today was very, very special at the hotel in Laos. Not only because he received a grand welcome by Indian diaspora, there were much more reasons to that. Take a look.
So some of those images really for keeps suckle there
Absolutely.
in Winchen. And let me bring in Dr. Satoru Nagao, our guest joining us from the Hudson Institute in Tokyo. Dr. Nagao, what do you make of how right now, of course, we've seen the Prime Minister get a resounding welcome there in Laopedia, but in terms of how the Laopedia is now going to stir the deliberations of ASEAN and also the ASEAN-India interaction, how do you think that will progress, keeping in mind the kind of priorities that Laopedia might itself have?
Indeed, India and Southeast Asia relation has something area that many people forgot for a long time. Because during the Cold War, especially in 1979 when China attacked Vietnam, in this case, India and Vietnam are close friends against China. But at the same time, other Southeast Asian countries, except Laos, which is ally of Vietnam, and are not the Vietnam side. So that's why India support Vietnam, and the connection between India and other Southeast Asian countries deteriorated that time. So after the Cold War, India started Look-East policy. Now under the Modi, the upgrade to the Act-East policy. This is a process to re-establish the connection between India and Southeast Asia. So now, as a result of the effort for a long time, and 3 decades, the relation has re-established, and people remember the connection. And so now we can see that this thing, because of the culminate of the effort last 3 decades. So that's why this is very important and bright achievement. India and Southeast Asia is connected.
Okay.
That is we are watching in this thing.
So, Professor Bharadwaj, in fact, let me take this to Ambassador Amrit. The fact that Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines and Vietnam, they claim that China has been messing with them, with their waters, and, you know, the violations of their national sovereignty, so on and so forth. India, as a dialogue partner at the ASEAN Summitry, in this summit particularly, we have talked about India leading from the one front as a voice of the global south. But what about India under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 3.0, leading the India way, as they say, in the ASEAN rubric?
Yeah, I mean, as continuing from where Professor has said, you know, during the 30th anniversary year of the India-ASEAN relationship, you know, when we had upgraded the relationship from the strategic to comprehensive strategic relationship, and it was underlined that the focus would be on maritime cooperation. And maritime entails everything, you know, from shipping to navy to better connectivity, trade, etc. And among the 3 focus programs, you know, as a policy, which India has underlined with ASEAN, again, maritime cooperation figures among one of the 3 among this. So the Prime Minister, who is visiting, in fact, Laos for the 2nd time, you know, in 2016, he had again visited Laos for the again India-ASEAN summit. So, in hindsight, Mr. Prime Minister Modi has a long institutional memory now with engaging with ASEAN at various levels, not only at direct ASEAN in Indian relationship with individual ASEAN countries, but at the institutional level also. So, in order to build up on that, and you know, with like-minded the sub-regions like Ganga-Mekong cooperation, where Laos figures as one of the countries from the Mekong side, and then as a member of Quad, And as these concerns of the member countries, especially the countries who name like Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia. So India is looking forward to strengthen its role. It's looking at projects, for example, with Laos, already second phase of quick impact projects have been launched with over 30 projects named. And around 11 to 16, what I'm, as per my information, has been already handed over for implementation after being, bringing them to fruition. So, so action is not only happening in words, but also through projects, through connectivity. And now Thailand, now the latest is some connectivity projects through Thailand, which with a canal passing through the isthmus of Thailand, which connects between Thailand and Malaysia, has been planned, where India is looking to play a role, which will again shorten the shipping routes and provide an alternative to the already quite heavily demanded Strait of Malacca.
Yes.
So these are areas where future looks good. India is already thinking and planning ahead, thanks to the visionary, thinking of our Prime Minister, who has been there. And so his 3O is likely to have a lot of impact on the ground, with especially ASEAN countries. And we hope to see India's imprint growing in the coming years.
All right. While you've been speaking, Ambassador Lagoon, we've been showing the 12-point proposal that Prime Minister Modi had put forth at the last ASEAN-India summit in Jakarta, and even on the question of connectivity. Now, Professor Bhardwaj, what do you think as to how all these proposals, that were these 12 proposals, what sort of progress has been made? Because where we see connectivity, especially physical connectivity, that has been challenging, taking forward the projects there because of the situation in Myanmar, and the ASEAN nations have not been able to come on one page, how to tackle the situation in Myanmar, because on one hand there are nations that don't want to accept the military junta at all, and even now the generals have not been invited. There will be a representative after 3 years, but there are others who feel that there should be a different sort of an attitude towards the rulers of Myanmar.
No, definitely. See, the regions are well known that what is happening in Myanmar. Myanmar, of course, doesn't have a democratic regime. Military junta is very active in suppressing the people's voice.
But it's also
and there are also conflicts.
They're losing out to the rebels.
Yeah, of course, they are fighting with the rebels, and the interesting point is that who is supporting to the rebels, who are supporting to the military junta. The source is only one, and the source why they are doing, because this is a good market for the arms selling. Arms market is there, poppy cultivation is there, and now they are also persecuting the Rohingya refugees. So, and they are coming to Bangladesh and South Asian countries and all that. So Myanmar has become very volatile or very sensitive zone. But the Chinese, they are coming, they are proposing new corridors, new routes like China-Myanmar economic corridor. That they are also developing a port, compound port near Sitwe. So they want to reach to the Bay of Bengal, and they are also importing energy resources from Arakan region of Myanmar, and huge energy resources are there. Point is there that since Myanmar has become a blockade, as in case of India wants to have cooperation with Central Asian Republic or the Iran, but Pakistan and Afghanistan is a factor not extending. The Myanmar, we want to cultivate, we wanted to keep relations with the day of the government, but the insecurity or law and order problem in this region is very problem. We are cooperating in oil and petroleum sectors. High definition diesels are exported to them through the land routes from Numaligarh, but we are not progressing much because the connectivity what we want to establish is not secure connectivity, and this was the reason that we could not reach to Myanmar. And then but you can see the Myanmar and Thailand's road is already complete, except the one patch is where rebellions and the military junta is fighting, we could not complete it. But we are extended it further to Laos, Cambodia and Vietnam, these all 4 states, and then I think we can think about Indonesia and Malaysia and Singapore, all these countries. So it would be a very strong physical connectivity project in that. Another project that India wanted to plot to connect with the northeastern is the Kaladan multimodal projects. That is also connecting project that India wanted, and we have invested about $500 million, but could not progress much. That one also we are looking. But one more important point is that ASEAN countries, they are united on this undemocratic military junta's repression in that, and they have boycotted, they are not inviting. But other ASEAN countries and India, they are coming together on one more issue, that they understand the emerging Indo-Pacific strategy. In the emerging Indo-Pacific strategy, there are 3 points that they are agreeing with each other. One is that they are all looking at that open and free Indo-Pacific region.
Correct.
The second, they are also looking at free navigational and trade rights to the people. Third, they are also looking forward to have law-based international system. Now, since the Chinese, they have some problem in Malacca Strait and they want to have avoid these choke points, they are exploring Myanmar, and they want to disturb first, and then they will propose some peace agreements that, see, we have brought a peace and we would go these projects. These are the techniques. I think somehow it has been destabilized the Southeast Asian countries, and now all the Southeast Asian countries, they are looking towards India as a hope that India can facilitate, can provide an stability and developmental projects to this. And this is the reason that Modi ji has also projected that India-ASEAN digital fund, to meet the gaps of the information technology, all that, semiconductor, all these fields. So we are looking forward to have a better cooperation with all the Southeast Asian countries, and this is the reason that we are looking forward to have a better trade and investment.
So the points that you are talking about, so we'll come to you again, because we need to just link it with the pre-departure statement of Prime Minister, which set the tone and the tenor and the broader agenda to what all India is going to bring to the table as far as India-ASEAN summit and summit tomorrow is concerned, East Asia Summit. But let's take a look at the high points of Prime Minister's departure statement. He expressed confidence that his visit to Laos for the ASEAN, India and East Asia summits will further deepen their engagement with the countries there. He also noted that India is marking a decade of Act East policy. This year, Prime Minister will be holding bilateral meetings with Lao PDR leadership today after the summit, and it also aims to further strengthen bilateral ties between the two nations, that's India and Lao PDR. And Prime Minister further made it he reiterated that India is marking a decade of Act East policy this year, and will be joining the ASEAN leaders to review the progress made so far by also sharing comprehensive strategic partnership, India-ASEAN.
The focus, of course, is to chart the future direction of cooperation, where, again, key focus areas remain connectivity and developing the capabilities of the nations. The East Asia Summit will also provide opportunity to deliberate on challenges, and the topic of discussion will be peace, stability and many other key elements. PM will also hold bilateral meetings with Lao PDR leadership, and he'll aim to further strengthen bilateral ties between the two nations.
Okay, as Prime Minister Modi is in Laos, we also take a look at the significance of these visits. I mean, what are the optics and why is this important? ASEAN and India, they share both land and maritime borders, and they are also civilizational partners. And ASEAN and India together, they share 7% of the world GDP and 26% of the world population.
Now, ASEAN is currently India's 4th largest trading partner, and India is ASEAN's 7th largest trading partner. ASEAN has truly become a global economy where FTAs have been playing a key role in the integration of these nations.
Yes. So having said that, as we just mentioned, that this year is also special because it marks a decade of India's Act East policy, a big transition from Look East to Act East, and how relations with ASEAN are a central pillar of Act East policy, and specifically the Indo-Pacific vision driven by Prime Minister Modi of India. And as Prime Minister Modi is in Laos PDR for the ASEAN-India summit that is scheduled today and East Asia Summit, which is scheduled tomorrow, here's a look at India's growing engagement and alignment within the region of ASEAN.
Well, there you saw how, in a nutshell, the relations between India and ASEAN have progressed through the years, particularly through the years when India adopted its Act East policies since 2014 under the Prime Ministership of Prime Minister Modi. We are, of course, still joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao, joining us from the Hudson Institute in Tokyo, Japan. Dr. Nagao, in terms of how these relationships have progressed, where do you think are the areas where India and the ASEAN need to really focus on now to ensure that it's a partnership of the future? Because in areas where India has been really emphasizing its own economic growth, for example, being a part of global supply chains, diversification, self-reliance, how can ASEAN's capabilities, gel with those so that we progress together mutually?
Both military and economically, each relation will progress because of the will of the two sides. Firstly, when we check what happened when the people called, Indian government called, this is a Look East policy, even if at that time, which is 1990 to 2000, defense cooperation between two has progressed much. For example, Malaysia, the 2/3 of the fighter jets Malaysia possess are related with the Soviet origin and Russia origin, but the training and maintenance and the training for crew, both pilot and ground crew, are run in India. And Indian trainer visit Malaysia and train them, and finally established a school. So maintenance of the Indonesian fighter jets, same thing, India take charge. In case of Vietnam, many training, including submarine fighter jets, everything has trained by India. Thailand, when they find the aircraft carrier, trained by India. And now also this relation has developed because of this military cooperation that time. And Singapore using the training field in India, permanent base, every 5 years automatically upgrade this contract. So that's why Singapore, US origin weapons they are using, but India is providing the training field. And now Philippines start to import BrahMos missile from India. So even if the defense-related issue, which is sensitive toward China, Southeast Asia want to cooperate with India. And the other area, for example, how to deal with China-related issue, for example, the market. India is a huge market. When ASEAN and India trade, as a market, India is very important. And another one is supply chain, the rare earths or other sensitive parts. Of course, India is a partner.
Okay.
And vaccine diplomacy, just a vaccine, but that's not true. This is very important, in the COVID-19 crisis. So that is also India create medicines, vaccines. So that's why all of these issues, they want to cooperate. Both sides want to cooperate. So huge potential is exists.
But Dr. Nagao, since you spoke about US, and US happens to be one of the important dialogue partners, although they joined pretty late. But US has also very strong interest in sort of preventing China from controlling seas in the South China Sea. Now, how do you see United States' role in this summit when they come to the table with India and the rest of the ASEAN groupings?
Of course,
And basically the role of the dialogue partners, including India.
Okay, bilateral basis, U.S. shows strong influence in this region. Number one trading partner of the ASEAN. Still, the United States has indeed shares a very big area. Even if the China trade with China or China and the ASEAN in this case is huge now, but at the same time, still the U.S. and ASEAN trade is also huge. So, but in the security partner, security provider, U.S. is a very strong influence in Southeast Asia. But at the same time, the current U.S. policy has changed a little because they love more bilateral-based cooperation. So, especially the Trump administration focusing on bilateral, but even if the Biden administration or former Obama administration start focusing on the bilateral cooperation, especially the security area. So by one they try to talk. But view from ASEAN, this is a little complex feeling because bilateral agreement could disrupt the cooperation inside of the ASEAN. So that's why cooperate with the U.S. is important choice for ASEAN, still very important choice. But at the same time, ASEAN wish to be integrated. That is also another part of the ASEAN's opinion. That's what happened recently.
Okay.
If I could now bring in the China factor again, China is also one of the partners of ASEAN, perhaps the biggest, and it's been announced there that both the leaders of both sides have announced that they are upgrading their FTA, the ASEAN-China FTA. What's happening with the ASEAN-India FTA is also then a question mark because India has been trying to rework it because it has worked more to the advantage of certain ASEAN countries than to India's. There's a trade imbalance that has come in through the years. They export twice as much to us as we do to them. So how much of that is a priority for the ASEAN nations themselves if they want to see India as a partner of the future who will counterbalance China?
No, definitely we are looking forward to have more trade and investment relations. There were earlier also opportunities like being part of RCEP, and India did not join RCEP because of the concerns of Indian agriculture and the manufacturing sectors in India. So we had reservation, but we are looking bilaterally as well as having FTA with ASEAN countries to increase that the trades. You know, if you will go in the historically also from the Chola dynasty itself, that we had very strong connectivity trade and trade relations with that, particularly in 12th century to onward. That the trade of spice and all that has been very much popular in Southeast Asian countries. So if we will have FTA, then definitely we will have more deeper economic partnership or economic engagement with these Southeast Asian countries. There are also, we are looking forward to have more people-to-people cooperations in keeping the tourist sector is one of the key sectors where around 4 million Indians had visited to all the Southeast Asian countries, including Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, and all these countries. So that could also bring the two economies, two people closer. Though that we are having very less visitors from Southeast Asian countries, around 80.
Yeah, that is another imbalance that should be corrected.
Yeah, it's very around 8 lakh people they have visited in a year. So there could be more people-to-people cooperations and the confidence building measures to have better understanding about trade and investment regimes in.
Do you think that the Ram temple, which is opened in Ayodhya, will some way sort of
course, the Ram
rebalance that?
temple we are also looking forward to have, because the the Nalanda university, we are also attracting people. They are coming to Sarnath, Bodh Gaya, all these places, pilgrimage, they are visiting here. We are also trying to open a Bay of Bengal study center in Nalanda Vishwavidyalaya, so that the Myanmar and these people can also come. So that if you will see, the 12-point agenda is in fact keeping to strengthen the relations in the sectors of disaster management, research and development, digital security, digitalization, and all these new areas which are pressing the two countries or two regions coming closer to have better cooperation. The only concerns is that there is high trade imbalance between China and Southeast Asian countries.
So how much of the China talk is going to happen on the table or on the sidelines? We will discuss that as well. But before that, we need to take a short break on this special broadcast, India at ASEAN Summit. Please stay standby, because the moment of the day is about to come. Prime Minister's presence at the India-ASEAN Summit in a short while from now. Please stay with us.